Well, good afternoon and welcome back to another Something for the Weekend. Apologies there was no video last week in this little series, but as I think I've said, this isn't necessarily going to be every week. It's just when I have enough content, 3 or 4 links that are worth sharing. Now here in Northern Ireland, as is the case across pretty much all of the UK, we're starting to see slight relaxation of the current lockdown measures. I, however, will be continuing to live by the can and the should principles. Even though we can travel unlimited distance to take our daily exercise, to go out and take photographs, I still personally believe there has to be a level of moral should we be doing that. And so I, for one, will be staying very, very local for the foreseeable. And I would encourage anyone watching this to perhaps do the same. You know, we are all in this together, and the last thing we want is for this to unravel and us to be back into more restricted lockdown. So that's all I'm going to say on it. Anyway, so I've got a couple of links to share with you, hopefully something that you'll find useful for the weekend. So let's jump over to the screen and get going. So first up is a video that actually I was just sent this morning. It's from Sanjay Jogia, someone who I hadn't actually heard of before. He's a portrait and wedding photographer. Now, it may be that some of the advice that he's sort of coming out here, given the fact that we are just coming out of lockdown, some people may say, well, this isn't really kind of applicable now. You know, it absolutely is. And what he basically does is he goes through just a bit of a discussion on how he has stayed creative at home. And in particular, looking at light. While he is a wedding and portrait photographer, I think the whole concept of light in photography is absolutely crucial, whether you're a wedding photographer, a sports photographer, a landscape photographer, a pet photographer, street photography, whatever, nature photography. And so what he basically goes through is just kind of, he goes into a little bit of the sort of technicality details of it. So if that's your thing, but he actually comes out with some really nice images, just showing how you can use the different sort of types of light without needing to use, you know, actual lighting equipment. And I think this is actually something that I have really been using these last 10 weeks of lockdown. Obviously, we've been doing the same daily walk here in Portrush, as well as spending much more time inside. And when you do something repeatedly like that, you start to notice things. And so what I've been doing is I've been spending a lot more time noticing how different light reacts with different surfaces, reacts with different objects. And I really do feel, especially on those daily walks, that I've really become to know my own sort of local landscape so much more better. And so now that we are allowed out sort of more and more with the camera, obviously, I'm hoping that I can actually use that to my advantage. But certainly worthwhile taking a quick sort of 8.5 minutes or so, really good video where he just talks about some of the actual sort of how you can produce some beautiful images with just light, either natural or something from his, you know, this is his bedroom lamp here, things that you've got around the house. So worthwhile doing. And even if you're not a portrait photographer, it is probably something that you can still apply, just looking at how light is reacting to a particular subject, be that your landscape, be that something in wildlife. And I would especially say in the landscape, quite often we will come across a scene and the light will be a certain way. Now, it may be that we get some nice light, a nice sunset or a nice sunrise, but I would argue, do we know that that's the best light for that subject? Now, the only way we can tell that is to revisit that subject under different lighting conditions. And I guess that's kind of what he's doing here. He's got a little bit more control because, of course, he's got some, you know, lamp here. But earlier on, he was kind of using just, actually, he was using the light sort of speckled through the actual trees here. He was also using sort of an overcast day. And so it's just getting to know how the subject looks under different light. And you may find that one of your landscape subjects, for example, perhaps works much better in a harsher light, black and white. Or maybe it works in the blue hour much better. Or maybe it does indeed work with a beautiful sunset. So, nice little sort of thing to get us started. Sanjay Jogia. He does pronounce his name inside the first 5 seconds, so apologies for butchering that. But I found that really useful. Okay, so second little article for you to get your teeth into. And it's a free article by On Landscape. And it's a lockdown project. Now, there's a little bit of a theme developing here regarding these resources that I'm sharing with you today. And again, this is something that, so what On Landscape did was they actually asked, as you can see here, Tim challenged Joe Cornish and David Ward to take a couple of photographs as a mini lockdown project. And what they also did was they expanded this out to a number of other photographers. Some of those we've probably heard of, others perhaps not. And I think there's two factors here that, again, not only spring out, but also have been very much apparent to myself over these last 10 weeks, and something that I'm really hoping to develop further. Number one, that images are everywhere. And the options for actually creating images and being creative are everywhere. I mean, look at this. This is beautiful. This is a dried up pea pod husk, I believe, and it's just beautiful. And again, going back to my previous comment regarding learning to see more, as I've been taking the same walks every day. That is something that I really believe over these last 10 weeks, even though I've been very much limited to where I can go from a distance point of view. I think I've developed more personally as a photographer over these last 10 weeks than I have over the last 2 or 3 years. And of course, the last 2 or 3 years, we have travelled far and wide in the camper van. And don't get me wrong, when the time is right, I'm going to look forward to travelling again. I love to travel. But it really has opened my eyes up that being restricted, either looking around the home or very close to home, quite often without a tripod or without any other kit, just with my little Fuji X100T, I have been a lot more creative, and my eyes have really been opened up to the potential. And that's kind of what kind of goes on here. There's some really fantastic little mini projects going on. And that's the key, the second point, projects. And I think I have spoken about this before. I really do now see the value in working in projects. And those projects do not have to be multi-year, multi-week, multi-month. It could be just a day, go down, take some photographs off, shells on a beach. In fact, this was actually done, shells within a tray with just water. I mean, it's just fantastic, just, flexing those creative muscles. But working in a project basis, not only does it allow you to see the images, sort of how they work together, but it also challenges you from a sequencing point of view. Yes, these last 10 weeks have been a real challenge. Yes, I am looking forward to getting back out there and stretching my wings again when the time is right. But I'm also excited, especially over these next few weeks where I am going to be making the choice to stay local, to continue to see and to continue to challenge my own creativity when it would seem maybe there isn't an image to be had. And just rounding off that theme of seeing more of what's in front of us. And I really do believe that being kind of forced to walk the same walk, to look at the same kind of landscape day in, day out, has really allowed me to see so much more here in Portrush. And that's the theme here in this Guardian article. awakening a sense of wonder in ordinary life. A sense of wonder is what we as photographers really need more of. Too often do we go to the same spots and take the same pictures. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that, absolutely not. But have we ever stopped and just looked at even the dew on the grass? Or looked at how the light is reflecting off a building? Or how, a leaf looks reflected in a puddle? I don't know. There's just so many elements, both man-made and nature, that can just kind of open up, and they're all around us. And this is just a great little series that The Guardian have shared today. I think as photographers, being open to this sense of wonder is an incredible realization. Too often, and I have been so guilty of this in the past, we limit ourselves to when we should be taking images. The golden hour. Carry your camera with you, carry your phone with you, and just look out in almost a childlike sense of wonder. Reflections, ripples, stories. Look at this. It looks like a laundromat, but looking out onto nature. And even just the more you look, the more you see. Just these lovely shadows coming down and the graduation of light. Repetition. The odd one out. Textures and patterns. These things are all around us. And when we open our eyes to this and be receptive to this sense of wonder, the opportunities really are boundless. So irrespective of your genre of photography, and coming off the back of, as lockdown is eased and hopefully continues to ease for us all, please do try to keep that sense of wonder. Capture it, because you really, really don't know where it might lead. Okay, so the next resource that I'd like to share is again quite applicable, as we do come out of the lockdown. Here living in Portrush, where during the winter it can be quite desolate and quite empty anyway. For a lot of the times that we were out, there wasn't a huge amount of difference in terms of populace. I'm happy and thankful that we live here in Portrush by the coast. There was a little part of me that would have loved to have spent even an afternoon or an evening in London, Birmingham, Glasgow, Belfast, Dublin, because I don't think hopefully won't see the likes of what we have seen before in terms of empty streets. And I came across this link on Slate, which was very reminiscent of maybe some of the more modern images that we have seen over the last couple of weeks, but with a touch of the murky, the sinister about them. And it really did just pique my interest. And again, one of the things I love about an image is when my eye is forced to linger. And even just in this one image here, there is so much to see. Your eye will naturally gravitate towards the lighter parts of the image. Not always true. I'll maybe talk about that at some other point, light versus dark. But there's so many different levels of light and levels of shadow in here that you do find your eye, what is this up here, and just a little tree, and this, the bars, and it just, yeah. This was actually one of my favorite images from the series. Just the empty streets of London. Sharpness and low noise, so overrated. I mean, if I could even have one of these images in my portfolio, I would be ecstatic. Absolutely just evocative. you know, you've just got a real sense of foreboding. You can almost sense the feeling that you would get walking around these streets. Just beautiful. Just beautiful. And in fact, I would love to visit some of these scenes now in the modern world and maybe repeat some of the images. But yeah, I thought this link was quite apt, given the fact that we are just coming out of lockdown, and this would definitely be my favourite image from that particular set, the empty streets of London. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed those few little resources, and they pass a little bit of time over the weekend. As I said, I think over these last 10 weeks, I certainly have, I believe, grown as a photographer, at least from a theoretical point of view, and from a challenge in knowing the direction that I kind of want to head in going forward. You know, these last number of weeks under lockdown have been challenging for us all, but they've also forced us to look at basically to look at what's right in front of us. And that's something that I really hope going forward I don't take for granted. And as I said earlier, I'm excited about challenging myself in my little local patch for the next few weeks at least. And I'll just leave you with 3 images. You may have seen these before. They have been shared on social media. But just 3 images that I have made during the time here. One sort of a little bit of a creative touch on an ICM image made actually before lockdown even came into play. The second one made on our daily yard time with the iPhone, multiple exposures. And then the last one, a post multiple exposure composition, just the shadows and light as they danced across the walls of our lounge. I think that was in the first week of lockdown, and just put together in a little composite. So anyway, enough rambling. It's the weekend. Please stay safe, stay local, and we'll catch up again soon. Until next time, bye bye.